Hi everyone, welcome to another Our Ladies Gaborone meetup. We have Luis. He'll be talking about he's the curator. I like calling him a curator for the large language models in the R space. So I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna hand it over to Luis.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, night, wherever you all may be on this Saturday. Thanks for connecting. Let me start sharing my screen, and I'll just go through my presentation. So, let me share my second screen. 1 second. All right. So, can you all see my presentation slides?
Yeah, we
Yes.
see.
All right. So this is just my presentation about large language model tools for R. So these slides, I think it's mentioned somewhere within the slides. I'll make them available on the guide that I wrote. I should have them up there linked by Monday. So don't worry if you don't have it. If you're interested in seeing these slides again, as well as the recording, I will upload them and link to them in the little guide or the book within this weekend. So no worries about that. Again, so thank you, Simi, for the invitation. Let me just introduce myself real quick. Some of my contact details and social networks. So let me introduce myself just quickly. I'm a biologist by training. Normally, I study mammals. I do things like ecology and conservation. But for several years now, I've been more involved in R, like teaching and writing blog posts and things like that. I've been involved with initiatives like our Open Sci and developed some packages. And I like working with our ladies. So if you are in a chapter and you want me to give a talk, I'm happy to do that. And I think at the end, I also have my contact details if you want to reach out to me for whatever reason. And with all that being said, let me just go ahead and start what we're here for, which is large language models. And if you're not familiar with either language models or large language models, or you've heard the terms, it's not that complicated, at least not the way I see it. So you might have seen some of these terms by now: language models, large language models, artificial intelligence, Gen AI or generative artificial intelligence. These are all pretty interrelated terms. And I'll just be referring throughout this talk to large language models. And as an introduction, first of all, to language models, let's look at this sentence here where it says, after drinking some water, the dog went back to the bed to feed her. And can I get some possibilities there from all of you connected? Either just unmute yourself or type it in the chat. So Lydia said puppies. Anyone else? I'll wait for one more. Babies, kids. Yeah, so exactly. Two of those I already have. So language models, let me see if it shows up. Ultimately are models that can predict the probabilities of different tokens appearing next to each other. So for example, puppies and babies might have a larger probability of being the correct, or not the correct, but the more frequently the more frequent element of that sentence there, and there might be some other terms that have different probabilities. Ultimately, that's what a language model does. So that I have the definition here. Language models, we use those to predict and generate text by estimating the probability of tokens occurring in a given sequence. And tokens are just series of characters, maybe words, maybe sentences. And this is just how the computer stores text. And language models, they're just predictive models that can generate text. And then more recently, people and teams and developers have been adding more parameters and really big training data sets to language models so that they're now large language models. An important part of this was something called transformers, which is just, at least to me, it's a very complicated mathematical algorithmic architecture, but ultimately it helps these models be more efficient in terms of memory and speed. And this is fairly recent, so the transformers term or algorithmic architecture came out in 2017. But ultimately, what we can do with large language models are things like generate text or translate text or do sentiment analysis. This one is an important one for us today, which is to write code. We can also generate images, we can generate videos, and many more tasks. So this is all very cool. However, let's consider a few things that I feel are important when we talk about these types of tools. So first of all, as an instructor, I keep seeing more and more evidence of negative effects of large language models on learning, and in particular, learning code. So it makes sense to me. If we're not doing the work ourselves, we might not learn as much or as well. So we need to consider that. Also, these models, they will reflect biases that us humans have anyway. So gender biases and things like that, those are built into the models. I also don't really like how much hype there is around these tools. I think I have one more slide about the hype. There's some anti-AI sentiment going around. Some of it's valid, some of it's exaggerations. And of course, things like the issues with how these model providers have trained their models, where they obtain their training material. Did they pirate books? If you buy a book and then you feed it to a model, is that fair use? And for people that are like artists and illustrators, there's also an issue with their art being ingested by these models. So a few things to consider, despite the cool things we can do with these types of models. And a bit more about the hype. And my main hint here is just disregard the hype you see that I keep seeing more and more, like on the internet and on the web. Just use what makes you more efficient. I'm sure you've seen posts like this where people are saying that if you don't become a prompt engineer, you're a loser with no future, and that everything we've learned is useless because now models can write code instead of us. I suggest we disregard this hype. Just learn how to do the things manually, learn how to use these tools, and just combine the two things together. And now, despite all the bad things or somewhat negative things I said about these tools and these models, I found these two quotes that I think are quite relevant here, which is that this one's from Simon Willison, who is very active blogger and developer about these types of tools. And he mentioned that he believes everyone deserves the ability to automate tedious tasks with computers. And on the same topic, Carl Bergstrom mentions that providing a way for people to talk with machines in natural or plain language is a big step forward in making computing accessible to everyone. And I agree with these two quotes. And now I've been talking about these large language models and models, but so where are the models and who makes them? I'm listing 3 popular models here that are hosted by cloud providers. I guess the most popular one is OpenAI, which is known for ChatGPT. Google has its own series of models. The company Anthropic has a series of very popular, very useful models. But there are many more, so let's just have a look. I believe I have a list of providers here. So Amazon has models, Google, OpenAI. Let's see what else we have. Lots of different models, lots of different providers. Many of these I've never tried. So Amazon has its own series of models, IBM, things like that. So lots of options there. And so these first types of models that I mentioned are the ones that are hosted on the cloud. So they're just running on someone else's machines or someone else's massive servers. And a benefit of that is that it's fairly easy for us to set up our access to these models. Like we just create an account with the provider. Often we need to set up billing and give them our credit card number. And then we get an API key that I'll talk about later. And a good thing about these cloud-hosted models is that we can get access to some really new, like cutting-edge models and to all the computing power that these servers have. But the downside for this is that these types of tools can be costly. So we have cost per tokens, and then if we get carried away doing things, either we'll be limited by our credits or we'll just get charged a lot of money. Also, we need internet access to work with this. And usually we'll be sending our whatever data to the provider. And if we're working with sensitive data or medical patient information, we need to be careful with that. We do have another option, which is to work with local models. And these ones we download, they tend to be smaller models. And we just download them and we run them on our own computers. This way, everything stays within our computer, no ongoing costs. We don't need the internet to do that. But the setup is more complicated. This is a bit of a steep learning curve. We do need more memory in terms of hard drive space and just RAM memory. For example, in my computer, I can barely run any of these. So I don't really use them on my personal machine. And when I do run them in a slightly more powerful machine, the performance is slower. A few examples are Olama and the Hugging Face Transformers library. So as I was mentioning, we have lots of options. Which model should we use? There's a few things to consider. So I guess the first one is pricing, right? Is this tool free to use, or do they have a free tier? And how otherwise, what's the price per token? What are the billing policies? I'm really scared for this sometimes, which is, we give these providers our credit card information. If we're not careful, they'll just recharge your credits as soon as you've finished using them. So it is a risk of running up an expensive bill. For the most part, models are fast, but some are faster than others. So it's something we can consider. We should also always read the data privacy documentation for the models. And if we want to use local models, then they really depend on which hardware we have. So how much memory, how much computing power do we have? And then we can choose our local model of choice. And on the topic of pricing, this is a very popular Japanese proverb, which says that nothing is more costly than something given to us free of charge. So these providers or these companies, they're gaining something by sharing these tools for free or by having free options for this. Maybe they wanted to get hooked and start paying for more tokens, or maybe just like with other things like social networks and things like that. If you're not paying for the product, then most likely we are the product. Okay. So, okay, we're happy with the pricing, or we found a model provider that's free. This slide here is particularly about cloud-based models. And we have two main ways of interacting with these tools. So we can do it in our web browser. So we go to a website and we log in, and then we have these web-based chat interfaces. And they have things like they'll remember our conversation histories, or we can upload files to do that. That's one way to do it. But the other way, which is more relevant to us, our users, is to interact with these models programmatically through an API. And APIs are, in summary, just the rules and protocols that determine how one application can request data from another. So APIs, they let different software systems talk to each other and exchange data without having to understand each other's inner workings. So for example, this dog here buying coffee, let's think of it as an analogy to an API. The dog only needs to know which types of coffees are on the menu for the coffee shop and how much they cost. The dog asks for a particular coffee and pays for it. And the dog doesn't need to know how to make the coffees or how the system in the coffee shop works. So APIs suggest that we use them to talk with our model providers, and we can do so from the browser or from our sessions. And here's an example, right? So APIs can let our applications, which can be our scripts or prompts or mobile applications or Shiny apps. So we send input text to the models. We can specify which one we want to use. Our application and the server, they communicate. We get back whatever we were trying to get, like text or code or data. And APIs, an important thing is that they also handle the authentication. And I believe that's my next slide. And it is. So if we're working with API keys, it means that we're going to be identifying ourselves with the model provider, and we're going to authenticate our encrypted connection to the servers. Typically, we create an account with one of these providers like OpenAI or Google or Anthropic, and we go in somewhere into the settings and we generate an API key. And then we have to keep the key safe because it's private and it's a security issue. So we need to keep it safe, but we need to keep it somewhere reachable by the LLM-based tools that we'll be using. So in our, most of the relevant tools and packages that we can work with, they can access the keys that we store in the environment variables. This is for the most part for just personal users, not like companies or people working on an intranet. But for like home use and personal use, we just store our API keys in environment variables. You might have seen the use this package that can open and edit the environment variables, where we just have these pairs of keys and values. So we might have in this our environment file, we might have OpenAI key, and then where our Google key or our Anthropic key, things like that. And these keys were never meant to share them in public repositories or documents. And I have these two links here, linked in the slides, about how to manage secrets, which include API keys, and a short YouTube video about using APIs.
Oh, Luis,
Mm.
hi.
Yeah,
Those two links you were talking about, are they in your website?
not yet. For now, they're
Okay.
only in the slides, but I'll put the
Okay.
slides on the website within the next 2 days. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good question. All right, so I've been giving, for now, just a very general overview of these LLM tools and some of the definitions. But now I want to talk about, first of all, where my interest in LLMs plus art came from, and how I ended up developing the little guide that I'll be talking about. So my particular interest in this topic is fairly recent, actually. So you might recall that tools like ChatGPT and things like that, those tools are barely 2 or 3 years old. And for a while, I remember that ChatGPT came out and people were just using it to just go online and ask random questions or life advice and things like that. And I thought that's not very interesting to what I do. Might as well just look online for what I need to do. I don't need to chat with a bot or anything like that. But then slowly I've been when I was teaching workshops, I would see things like this where every single student or most students have my materials for the workshops open, but also a little web browser with ChatGPT open. And I realized that, okay, the students are using these tools to actually write code and understand any problems they're encountering. So I became slightly more interested in that. And I realized that, for example, over the past 2 years, and specifically over the past few months, I'd say the outputs in terms of our programming are decent enough, and they're actually pretty good by now. So these models are now producing code that works. They're actually solving problems. I have a friend that started a job that had more complicated tasks than initially advertised. And my friend was able to complete the tasks and do well at the job thanks to large language models. And my interest also comes from the pretty much the explosion of tools and software and features in late 2024. There were I went to some conferences last summer and then at the end of the year, last year, and a lot of the keynotes were introducing these kinds of things. And then people started blogging about them and writing tutorials and demos about that. So that also sparked my interest. And ultimately, with what I was mentioning about students and colleagues having like our studio open, but also having the website for ChatGPT open, I thought, I'm sure there's other options to reduce these types of content switching. And content switching is when we're shifting our attention between different tasks and programs. And not only can it be tiring, it makes us more less productive and less efficient. Like, for example, having a chatbot open with a model and in the browser, and then we're copying and pasting that into our IDE, and maybe from there, pasting our results to a word processor, and at the same time, I don't know, getting distracted with the phones or YouTube videos. But I feel like by now there's a way, from what I've learned in the past few months, to reduce context switching, start using or leveraging these models right inside our, uh, our, uh, 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 our studio sessions or whatever IDE we're using. And ultimately, with what I've learned in the past few months, to reduce context switching, start using or leveraging these models right inside our studio sessions or whatever IDE we're using. And this way, we're not doing that much copying and pasting and having to be really meticulous about how we do this thing. So that's why, that's basically where my interest comes from. And then why did I write this little guide or quarto book for the LLMs plus R? If you haven't seen it, I think the link is pasted in the chat. Might paste it again for people that joined later. I'll show it real quick here. Second. It's just a quarto guide or quarto book format hosted on my GitHub with some reading materials, a list, an ongoing up-to-date list of R packages that we can use to work with LLMs. And I divided that into general interfaces, some tools for local models, I don't know, some tools for computer vision, image generation, things like that. Some reading material and tutorials, and a short bit about options in Python. And what I really like about the book is that it's bilingual, in English and in Spanish. All right. So I wrote this guide to share what I was doing, but also I wanted to learn about how to write a quarto book format online. I wanted to show off my hexagonal grids here. Give me a second, where is it? It's in the English version. All right. I want to show off my package for creating these types of interactive hexagonal tiles for all the stickers. Also, this is more serious. I want to contribute in Spanish to improve access to these tools, which are, it's a thing with accessibility and helping people that speak Spanish to start leveraging these tools. And at the same time, this forces me to keep up with developments and to actually try and learn the tools that I mentioned in the guide. All right. So let's get started with a few things. So regardless if we're doing this in a browser or in an app or whatever, a few things like related to R that we can put in a chat window. Like, how do I add a subtitle to my ggplot? Or what are the arguments for pivot wider? Some of these things we can just research ourselves, or maybe we're really having trouble and we can't do a join operation and we have an object and we have a data frame and we need help. So these are the types of things that we can most likely do with an LLM. And at the same time, this is also something that I was interested in. So, for example, without the context of models, it's easier to be just sitting there in person with someone at their computer to help them, rather than, I don't know, trying to help someone over the phone. And this is the type of thing that I want to talk about, where we're actually bringing these tools and models into our R session and providing them the context that we need so that we can actually write code or fix code and actually pass on the context of what we need to do to these models. And we're doing well on time, so I'm going to do 3 quick demos of a few tools that I consider to be cool and also useful, and the ones that I've actually used in a real setting for my particular work. So 3 quick demos of 3 quick things. These are all listed in the little guide. So the first thing I want to talk about is the continue extension. So continue is an extension for VS Code, the IDE, but it works in other forks, including Positron, which is this new IDE from Posit, the people that make RStudio. It's an extension that we installed into our IDE and we run it. And it has some really cool features like a chat box, and it has code autocomplete, and we can give the tool context items. So we can just mention a script and ask for help with that particular script or particular file. So I think I have set up a quick demo for this. I'll be running this in Positron. You should be able to see my IDE once it loads.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. So it's loading. This is Positron. This is what it looks like. For anyone unfamiliar, it's similar to RStudio, but it has some
Sorry,
cool.
Luis. Is it possible if you could zoom in a little closer?
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, better. Thanks.
Yep. All right. So for some reason it's being slow. I think because of the Zoom and all my things open. Just waiting for the continue extension to load. And this extension, it's something that we have to install, and then it has really good documentation. And then we have to give it our API keys for these models. And if we have the extension active and running, it has things like autocomplete. I don't know. If I start typing, and you can see that it's giving me suggestions. And I can just use my tab key to start accepting these suggestions. So it's autocomplete. I don't really use it, but I want to show it to you. It can be very distracting for teaching, but autocomplete sometimes can be a really good time saver, and that's part of this continue extension. It also has this little chat box here where we can ask things like we would do for any model. We can see here that I'm using Gemini Flash, which is one of these models from Google. I've set up a bunch of different ones. We can ask things. I'm going to give it my script called demo script. And I'm just going to type this script has errors. Help me fix them. It's going to read the script. It's telling me a few issues that it recognized. I put these issues there on purpose, so I know that the answer is correct. It's giving me suggested changes. All right, so I wasn't loading the package correctly. And there's this button to either copy what it's suggesting or insert it directly, or just apply the suggestions. And I can either accept or reject each particular suggestion. So I'm just going to accept all these fixes, and now the code should work, except it still won't, because I'm not loading the correct package. So I can say, this is still not working. And I can give it the error message. So now it fixed the issue with ggplot2. And I could also apply those changes as well. So that's what Continue does. It's autocomplete, chat, and like a local assistant that can do things in Positron. Let me close this for memory's sake.
Is the continue extension, does it depend online, or can it work on the local machine?
If we set it up to use local models for everything, because it has these settings where we can say, okay, so for the chat we can use one model, for the autocomplete we can use a different model, and for the there's also another model that we can choose to rank the suggestions that we get back. If we configure it to only use local models, then it can work offline.
Oh, okay.
I've tried to use it like that, and it works, but it's really, at least on my machine, the suggestions and how it works, and when I apply the fixes, they're really slow. But if we have people that have these powerful Mac computers, they can probably do something like that with only local models. All right. I don't know if there were any questions in the chat. Maybe not.
No, not
No,
yet.
okay. Okay. Let me go back to my slides. Okay. We need to have GPU for local LLM. Not really sure. I think some local models can use GPUs. Others just depend on RAM and processing, like the processors. But I think some actually can leverage GPUs. I don't have a GPU, which is like a graphics card on my computer. But yeah, maybe if you have like a gaming computer, it can work like that. I'm not really sure because I haven't used a GPU machine in a few years now. All right, so that was the continue extension. It's one that I learned about maybe last year, and for when I do package development. Nowadays, I'm doing my package development in Positron, and sometimes I do use the continue extension to help me with some tasks. The next little demo I'm going to do is with the Elmer package and friends, so some related packages to Elmer. Elmer is a really cool package that it bridges R with LLMs. It's developed by the team, by a very big team at Posit. It's really robust, and it's designed for interacting with LLMs directly in R. And it's actually meant for like use in production. And the models can execute and run our code to do even more things. And it has a thing where we can get structured data, so output that's immediately usable in R. So I have two quick demos that I want to show before people have to leave and before we reach the hour, but I think we should be good. So I have two demos. One is just a script here. I'll make my text bigger. Too big. Give me a second. All right. So I need to load my Elmer package. By the way, the package is really well documented about how we use it, but let me just load the package. In this case, I'm creating so Elmer works by creating these objects, these chat objects that have all these different methods. If you're familiar with objects and methods in R, like object-oriented programming, I'm going to create an object. This is created with the function chat grok. Grok is a model provider, and we can choose different models. I'm going to create that object there. And then we could just chat with the model. So let's just say we're asking this particular model, which is Llama 4 Maverick 17B, whatever. list 3 interesting facts about Gaborone. So that's being sent by Elmer to the model provider. And now we're getting the output just in the console. And because the chat object will remember what we're like the conversation, I can maybe now ask summarize each of these facts. All right. So this is basically what we would do in a web browser. We can actually go to the grok.com website and ask things in a chat window. But with Elmer, we can actually just do it from R and keep these outputs. That's a fairly simple example. Now let me show you a cooler one that we're actually going to try and use in my lab, where we do things with biological information. So I believe I have this open. Give me a second. Okay. Can you see a PDF there? All right. So this is a species account. This is for a bat. This is just a very old PDF file from 1972. And it has a lot of information about this particular bat. This is an old PDF. We can't really select the text. It's just like it's been scanned and not digitized. And I have 2 of these PDFs. And what I'm going to do in this quick demo is to use Elmer to create a chat object like it just did before. In this case, I'm going to use Gemini model from Google. I'm going to, in this case, use a system prompt saying that the model is an assistant and can extract structured data from scientific papers. By the way, this is all based on a post by Chris Brown at the University of Tasmania. And what I'm doing here is just using a function from Elmer to give a PDF file. In this case, it's a local PDF file that I have on my computer to the model. And if it's, even if it's not, if it hasn't been processed by optical character recognition, the model will do it for us. So I have 2 PDF files, one for 2 different species, one for each species. And this here, which is a type object, basically is what information do I want to extract from these PDFs and how do I want it to look like? So I want the focal species of the document and some things that we biologists are always measuring from bats are the length of the forearm and the length of the ear and how much they weigh, right? So this is the type of information that we want to extract. As I was mentioning, Elmer works with methods. So once we create our chat object, which I call chat demo, we use a method called chat structured. And in this case, for one of these PDF files, I'm sending this to the Gemini model through the internet. And I should have just a list. It found the species name, it found the forearm length, found the ear length, and the body mass. Now I should ideally just go into my PDF and see if that's correct. Just gonna go quickly to see if I can see the forearm length, just real quick. Okay. It might have done an average. I need to check. It should be somewhere there. Oh yeah, the length of the forearm, 47.5. So it worked. And I can do this iteratively. So I can create a function called get measurements, which is basically just extracting the measurements from from a PDF file. applied to both PDF files that I have on my computer. It's doing it now. Let me just print that result on the console. So now I have a list of 2 data frames. For some reason, it didn't work because it used the same species twice.
Oh, Luis,
Not
could you slide your screen a little to the left so we could see the whole statement? Is it for
like
line
that,
27? I think you should can you zoom out a little bit? Or you can make the window bigger and
like
zoom out
that.
a little bit.
Is that better? No.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. So for some reason, this isn't working like I wanted to. Let me see what's happening. It worked yesterday when I was trying this out, but ultimately we should get 1 data frame for each species. For now, it's not really working, but ultimately this is what's something that in my lab we're trying to implement to extract information from a lot of PDF files that are really old, and we don't have that much time to do this by hand. So this is something that we're going to be trying to do for a lot of old PDFs.
Mhm. I may not
Of
know
course,
how Elmer. Oh, sorry, Luis. I just have a question. I may not know how Elmer works right now, but the functions that you created, are they automatically saved or can you save them somewhere in the
so
in
the
the session?
so the function I just created is just in the function definition is in my script, and now the function is living in my workspace.
Mhm.
And basically it's just extracting the structured content from one particular file and then just coercing that into a data frame. But yeah, we can save the functions, either just the source code or if we want to, we can save the environment, our environment for use later on.
Will Elmer remember your function later if you want to call it in the future?
Elmer will remember chats within a session, and whatever we've been doing in terms of the context that we've been sending to the models back and forth. I'm not sure when it clears the memory, but if we're working in a particular session, Elmer will remember all that. And because we're working through an API key, whatever model provider we use will also most likely keep a history of this. But that's a good question. All right. I have one more quick demonstration to do. I know that we're a bit short on time.
No, 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 you're good. You're fine.
I wasn't sure if we needed to wrap up
No, no,
within
not
the
at all. I mean, if people want to go, they're free to leave and they'll catch up the recording next week.
All right. No, also because we started 10 minutes past the hour so that people could join. I'll finish 10 minutes past the hour as well. Okay, so my next little demo is for this Gander package. It's built on top of Elmer, and what it does is it brings these model tools to our studio sessions so that ultimately we have more than just a chat window. And the thing that I really like about this package is that every time we send a request, Gander will receive a snapshot of our environment. So whatever objects we have and the names of the columns we have and whatever function lives in an environment, Gander will be aware of it so that we can just ask things. And I think I have a demo for that. Here we go. Let me restart our session. All right. So just very basic script that you might have seen earlier. Gather needs a bit of a configuration first. In this case, I'm just saying that the Elmer should be creating a chat object with the Anthropic provider. So it will use, it's telling me right now it's using Claude 3.7. Okay. So now I have this script that's not working. And if I try to run this code, it won't work. So now I can actually just in our studio, select this code. I have already installed Gander, and Gander comes with our studio add-in. So I'm just gonna use a keyboard shortcut that I configured for that, which is Control-Alt-G, G for Gander. And now I can just ask things of my model here. And it will know that I'm referring to this particular selection of code. I'm going to select, just put the solution after my problematic code. And so my solution is just here. It fixed the package that I was loading correctly. It loaded the package that I needed. It fixed the quotations that I was using wrong. And it can also write code for us. I'm going to just select this. And maybe ask for to the scatter plot of, so the msleep object is, it comes with ggplot2. It has different parameters of like body size and how much time these different animals spend sleeping throughout the day, and brain size and things like that. I'm gonna do body size, brain weight. So it figured out the names of the variables in that object. This might be creating a 2D scatter plot. Let's see. And there we have the scatter plot. And for some reason, the model decided to color the points according to trophic categories, but that was just for the demo and it seemed to have worked. All right. Just lost my slides here. Let me just render them
Okay.
again quickly.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Luis? Any questions so far? Nothing yet? Okay. I think everyone's we're on the same page.
All right. Okay, so if there are no questions, I just did very quick examples. I didn't go through the setup. Either way, these things that these three tools that I chose to show, they have very good documentation. I just wanted to to show something cool and quick. To start wrapping up the session today. So these are things that are not part of this talk for time and because I haven't learned this yet. But these are interesting, like future things or things that are coming up. They're more or less covered in the little Quartzo book. So one is the Model Context Protocol, which is this standardized protocol. It was developed by Anthropic, and it's just a way for models to talk to our applications. So similar to what Gander is doing, so a way to give context so that the model can know everything we're doing, everything we have in our session, That's a MCP or Model Context Protocol. I think it's it will become a very big thing in the near future. I also didn't talk about RAG, which is Resource Augmented Generation, which is now part of this LLMs plus R space. And basically in RAG, we feed the models additional information like technical documentation or things that are new and not part of the training material for a particular model. Sorry. And this way we get just better overall results. And another thing that's upcoming and possibly useful is just the concept of agents, which leverage the MCP protocol, and then it's going to be an agent that just does many things with some degree of autonomy, and we can just, rather than do one particular question or one step at a time, just tell them, the agent, just clean this data set, and it will come up with all these steps and try them, and if it doesn't work, try a different approach and just work on its own, more or less. So that's something that's coming up as well. I added a package for this within the past month, I think, to the guide, a new package that can actually help us write agents that can do different things on their own. I tried to do it, but these things use so many tokens that I ran out of my $5 in credit, and I stopped trying. But I think this is a cool thing coming up. I think a lot of people are blogging about agents and these types of tools. So just things to be aware about. Also, to wrap up, as we know, this is a very dynamic and very fast-moving field, so it is a bit of an effort staying up to date. Some of the key players in this space are constantly innovating and coming together, and then people are like, I can see on GitHub activity, people are suggesting like cool features, and then one package that maybe one developer created, it's being incorporated into larger suites of packages so that things work even better. So lots of innovation, lots of collaboration. Conferences tend to introduce some of the cool tools and the newest things. And also, just if you're interested in this, you might have to spend some time online and just looking at blogs and social media. Or you can just check my little guide. I try to update that every week with what I see or what people send me. So that's something about staying up to date. And yeah, we should be good on time. So a few closing thoughts, like, even though these are very cool tools and we can work with them directly in R, they might not always be necessary. So if we have a problem, we have a question, the answers we need, they might already be in a package's documentation or in a book, or maybe your colleague can help you, or someone already blogged or wrote a tutorial about that. We don't always need to just rush to these tools, and not really necessary. To me, using LLM tools is optional, but we can use them to be more efficient, but always verify their outputs. Nothing guarantees that these things are going to be accurate or functional. So use for efficiency, but always verify outputs. And if you do experiment with these tools and you get success and they actually work as intended, please share your success, like write a blog or post it on social media so that people can learn from our development. I feel like these tools, despite their popularity, there are not that many people writing like blogs and things like that. Not sure why. And lastly, I wanted to just mention a few people that their names are always coming up, and they're doing a lot of development on these packages. So people at Posit, like particularly Simon Couch, a few other people that are actually creating videos and tutorials for this, independent developers and maintainers, and also want to thank people that shares my guide or sends me feedback or points me to tools that I missed. Something that I noticed when I was creating this slide is that all these are dudes, which is not very cool. I hope more our ladies get involved in this. Or maybe I'm biased and I haven't found any tools developed by women. But anyways, a few acknowledgements that I did want to mention. Thank you all for attending. Thanks, Simi, for the invitation. Some of my contact details, and once again, these slides will be linked in the guide by Monday. So if there are any questions, any discussion, if you need to go, feel free. And I don't know, I'll stop sharing my screen and on to you, Simi.
Question.
Yeah,
If you can hear me, thank you.
I can.
Awesome presentation, Luis, and thanks, organizers. Also agree, there are a lot of dudes. Thanks for making that shout out. There's a lot of conversation going on about energy efficiency. Can you give us a guide on when we should use LLMs? And in your opinion, how can we use it so it makes us smarter, not dumber, as per the last, I think it was an MIT paper, which I'm just quickly gleaning off. What are your thoughts there?
Right. So it is a thing, and I somehow didn't make the slides about these models because they're running on servers and they're massive data centers that use a lot of electricity and water and things like that. So it is an important consideration. And I like to, this is not my original idea, but I saw someone mention this at some point, which is that we should treat LLMs like we treat our usage of LLMs like we treat like disposable takeaway containers. If we can avoid doing it, we should, because a lot of the time we don't really need to use these things, right? Like, for example, I was creating these slides in Quarto, and I wanted to make a Quarto CSS class for smaller text that's going to be centered on the right. I could have asked an LLM that I've already set up and it's configured and it will work well within our studio and just give me that. But I'd rather just Google that myself, or maybe just look at the documentation. So I treat it like that, like especially for some minor uses, unless we're really stuck and we can't really find an answer, treat our usage of LLMs like we would treat takeaway containers. Like when I go to the coffee shop, I take my cup, like that. And also, as you mentioned about how these things might make us dumber, I feel like if we're going to do something, if we're going to have a model write some code for us, we should at least try to do it ourselves first, and then at least for a minimum viable example, and then we can start working with these tools. Otherwise, we won't really learn. So yeah, thanks for that, Audrey.
Thank you too.
Anyone else?
Yeah, what if we find some article or a tool and we want to share it with you? Can we send it to you through social media, through the contacts you gave us before?
Yeah,
And what is it that we can share? Should it only be about the tools or anything related to LLMs?
so I tried to have not everything related, because it's such a big field and there's lots of content. So for the most part, if a new package comes out, maybe that, or if a tutorial of you or a video of using these tools in R.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you see that, just send it to me through social media, or I've had people suggest things in the GitHub repository for the book, or LinkedIn, or email. I received some feedback through email. So yeah, feel free to do that.
Mhm. Would you like consider Cosima's article about how, people say that AIs hallucinate, or because she's thinking in her article that instead of using the word hallucinating, people could rather say confabulating because
Oh
it's
yeah,
more,
I
yeah,
saw the link in the chat. That one I
okay.
definitely will add to the guide because that's really relevant.
Hmm.
And I know she's involved with Our Ladies, and she writes really well. So I will be
Hmm.
adding that to the guide
Okay.
for the next update.
Well, Audrey's asking if the presentation is going to be on the website. He did, Luis did say that he's going to post it on his website by Monday. It should be there.
Yeah, the slides will be linked in the guide by Monday. I just need to check a few things and check that all the links work.
As well as the recording, it should be up on Our Lady's global YouTube channel by Monday, beginning of the week, next week. Mhm.
All right.
Do we have any more questions, comments? No? Okay. All right. Thanks, Luis. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Mhm. And thanks for everyone who joined on a Saturday.